how's it going today? So I just wanted to sit down and chat with you guys about my two very different birthing experiences, and I wanted to kind of compare how my labor was with an epidural and how my labor went all natural. I know some people out there are going to get offended that I called my second birth a natural birth because I was induced, but what I mean by natural is unmedicated, not having any kind of pain medication. So while I did have Pitocin, and I guess that could be considered a medication, I didn't have any pain relief. So I let my body take the most natural progression that it could. I'm just going to do this video in like a pros and cons format. If you guys want to see my birth stories, I will link them down in the description below. I've done both of them, so you can check those out there. This video would be so long if I went into their birth stories in this video. So I'm going to start with the epidural, and then I'll chat with you guys about how my natural labor went. So pros for the epidural, you can get a little bit of rest. So I had a really intense experience birthing my daughter, and the whole experience was just kind of overwhelming, and it got crazy at times and that kind of thing. So I needed some time when I could just sleep. Once I got the epidural, birth became kind of fun. It wasn't intense anymore, and I was able to be social. I was able to talk with my husband and the nurses in the room and anyone who came in to visit, that kind of thing. So you will be able to interact with people around you. So that is definitely a pro for the epidural. When I got the epidural, the actual like procedure of getting it, it was quick and easy. So I was able to have pain relief, and it was pain relief that happened quickly, and it was really easy. I've heard from people who got their epidural earlier in labor that they do feel like a burning sensation or like a pinch when they get their epidural, but because I was so far into labor and in the intense part of labor, I didn't feel anything. So now I want to talk to you about the cons that I experienced with an epidural. So the first one is that the epidural can slow down labor. So when I got to the hospital, it was like a 3-hour time range from when labor started, and I was already at 8 centimeters with my first baby. I figured that I would just get the epidural and then I would be pushing soon. However, it took another 2 hours for my body to become fully dilated and for me to be pushing my baby out. Something that you can consider though is that you will be able to kind of just relax during that time if you have an epidural on board. So while labor might take a little bit longer, your body will be able to just kind of hang out and relax. It gave me that time to think, and in that time I started to get scared. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to push this baby out pretty soon. Like, what is that gonna be like? They told me they're gonna turn down my epidural, It just really gave me time to get anxious and scared. So for me, having time before giving birth or having my mind not occupied on another task really was not a good thing for me. So that would be a con for me. Back pain, that is another con. So even today, I have lingering back pain that most medical professionals that I've seen have attributed to the epidural. So the epidural, if you don't know, is a needle or a catheter that they put in between your spine, and for some women they have pain and discomfort and like bruising for weeks, months, and even years after birth. So my daughter is 9, and she is the baby that I had the epidural with, and I still have back pain from that procedure. So that is something that you're going to want to consider. So the last con that I have for my epidural birth is that you can't walk, and you will most likely get a catheter, which could cause UTI or a bladder infection. So you definitely cannot walk, which a lot of like OBs and midwives say that's why your labor slows down, because you can't really work with your body anymore. You're just kind of stagnant and sitting in bed. And then, you know, with the catheter, you get a catheter because you can't feel anything. You don't know when you're going to the bathroom. And if you don't know when you're going to the bathroom, you are likely to just go everywhere. So most hospitals use a catheter. Some of them will like pick you up and carry you to the bathroom if you request that. But definitely neither one of those things are a fun deal. And the removal of the catheter for me was actually more painful than giving birth. Also, going to the bathroom for the first time was was the most horrible pain ever. So those are the cons for having an epidural. So now let's talk about the pros of having a natural labor. So for me, a pro of natural labor is that you get to move around. You can walk pretty much wherever you want. I had a natural unmedicated birth in a hospital, and so I did get induced, and so they wanted to monitor me, but they put the monitors that were cordless on so that I could move around and I could walk and kind of do what I needed to do. I was able to be on the birth ball, and I was able to like walk around the hospital, and I was able to walk around the room and that kind of thing. So for me, that was really awesome, and I liked being able to feel like where the baby was in my body. It was really, really neat because even my husband could tell as labor got more intense that, you know, Harrison was getting lower, and he could see what was happening to me physically, and he could tell just by how I was acting what was happening with my labor. So that was really cool for me. Another pro to having a natural labor is you don't have to worry about a shot. There's no shot. And for me, that was a big pro. I don't like needles very much, which is weird for somebody who has multiple tattoos. And if I can avoid getting a shot, I will. So even before I found out I was pregnant with Harrison when we were trying, I was already in my mind saying I was going to have a natural birth. I had this whole thing like planned out, mainly because I didn't want to get a shot. So that is a pro for me. Another pro of having an unmedicated birth is that you don't have to think about any kind of side effects from having an epidural or after effects. So for me, the back pain was another consideration. I didn't want that to potentially get worse or get aggravated or anything like that. I also had friends who had what's called the epidural headache, and after they had their epidural, they had this just like horrible headache, and it lasted for weeks sometimes, and it was just super intense, and I couldn't imagine having that side effect and then trying to be caring for my new infant. I couldn't even like wrap my head around that. So I wanted to avoid all of the side effects and after effects of an epidural if I could. For me, a pro to my natural labor was I had an incredibly quick recovery. So my postpartum bleeding stopped right around 3 weeks, and that is likely because he was my second baby and my body already knew what to do, and my uterus was clamping back down, doing everything it needed to do. But as far as like my physical body, I felt amazing. I had no tearing with Harrison, which I actually attribute to my natural labor because I could feel when I was pushing and what was too much, and with the guidance of my midwife, I was able to push gently to not tear. It decreased my recovery time. I also just really felt the oxytocin and that immediate bond, which boosted my energy right away. I had so much energy after he was born, and even in the few days that followed, I was ready to honestly like get up and run a marathon. People were telling me I should be sitting down and resting, but I was like, no, I feel amazing. I'm totally good. So the recovery was really awesome. I had a really good experience with recovery. So I have a couple of cons for my natural labor as well. So natural labor it goes without saying almost that it is intense. So natural labor is very intense, especially in my situation. I had an augmented natural labor. So I had Pitocin on board, and Pitocin contractions are no joke. I will not lie to you at all. I have felt natural contractions and I have felt Pitocin contractions, and they are like worlds apart. The medical staff at my hospital tried to tell me, it won't feel much different and that kind of thing. But the thing that feels different is that there's no break. In a natural labor, you have a break that can be anywhere from like 45 seconds to 2 minutes, depending on where you're at in your labor. And with Pitocin contractions, they are back to back to back to back. So with those really intense ones, you get no break, and it just progresses your labor. So I will say that it is a very intense feeling. Some of those feelings I enjoyed though. Like I was saying, I enjoyed feeling my son move down in my body. I enjoyed knowing when it was time for me to push and like my body kind of working with me. But I will not lie, natural labor is intense. I won't call it painful though, because there are painful moments, and then there are like pressure moments, and then there are just like overwhelming intense moments. So you know, it's intense. And then the other con that I had for my natural labor is that it can be intense for your spouse. I remember moments where my husband wasn't exactly sure what to do. We did have a doula, which was really, really awesome. So she kind of helped him help me, right? So like she told him how to support me, but I know that he didn't like seeing me in pain at times. You know, he just didn't like seeing me like that. So it can be really intense for the people that you have around you. So if you do have a natural birth, make sure that you have people who are going to advocate for you and support you in that choice and not really try to push you towards that medicated birth if that's not something that you want. Before I wrap up this video, I want to say that I have had both experiences, and like I said, there's good things and bad things about each one. I'm not here to say if you had an epidural or if you had a natural birth that one way is better than the other, because like I said, both have pros and cons. I want just to give people information and to share, you know, my experiences with these things, because I don't think that there's many people who've kind of been on both sides of the fence and seen both. So with that, I just want to thank you guys so much for being here. If this is something that you liked, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. If you had a natural labor or an epidural, you can leave your story down in the comments below. If you've had both, maybe tell me a pro and a con that you experienced in each scenario. So that is all I have for you guys today. If you are new here, welcome. I'm so thrilled to see your face. If you would hit that red subscribe button below, that would be awesome. You'll get notifications when I post. By the way, you guys, have fun today.